The first time the red light moved, I didn't think person. I thought electronics, like a standby light, a sensor, something small and stupid and battery-powered that someone forgot to turn off. It was so dim, it felt embarrassing to react to it at all. But it moved like it was checking something. It slid across the upstairs window in a slow, careful arc, and then stopped, not drifting, not fading, just holding there, like whoever was holding it had decided to stop where they were, like they were waiting to see if whatever they'd noticed would move again. My phone light was off. All of ours were. We were standing just inside the trees, and the dark felt heavier there, like it had a weight. In that moment, I realized how long we'd been walking without talking. Someone behind me whispered my name, not loudly, just breath and consonants. "Don't," I whispered back, automatically, like the dot could hear me, like speaking would make it move. The cabin was still mostly a shape then, a darker block among darker trees, the kind of cabin you don't really see until you're almost on top of it, because it's built low and tucked in like it doesn't want attention. 2 stories, barely, maybe 2.5 if you counted the roof, a porch that didn't look sturdy enough to trust. We'd been talking about getting there like it was guaranteed. Like once we saw the cabin, everything would reset, warmth, food, walls, a place where the ground didn't shift under your feet. We'd treated it like a checkpoint. I don't know who started doing that. If I explain the plan clearly, it sounds reckless, but it didn't feel reckless at the time. We checked the weather, we packed layers, we told someone where we'd be. We'd had coordinates written down, copied from a text thread that kept getting buried under other messages. We heard a story about a cabin, not a solid one, but enough of one that we didn't question it. It was supposed to be a general use cabin. That's what Mark said. Like one of those old forestry cabins where you sign a logbook and leave a note and sweep the floor. He said someone he knew had stayed there before. He also said it might be locked. That part didn't bother me until later. At the time, it was just another variable, not a stop sign. If it was, we'd just camp outside. Easy enough. It had gotten cold earlier than expected. That's the boring part, but it matters. The temperature dropped fast once the sun stopped hitting the trail, and the forest swallowed what little light was left. My fingers kept going numb inside my gloves. When we stopped to drink water, the plastic mouthpiece was stiff, like it wanted to crack. My headlamp started blinking low battery around dusk. I thought I'd brought spares. I'm still not sure if I'd forgotten them, or packed them, or lost them, or left them in the car. That detail loops in my head more than it should, like if I solve it, something else will make sense. We saw the cabin after full dark, finally. First it was the shape, then the porch line, then the upstairs window, a square of deeper black. And then, inside that square, the red light. It moved. My stomach dropped in a very physical way. Not fear as a concept, just my body reacting before my brain caught up. My knees bent slightly, like I was about to sit down without deciding to. Sophie grabbed my sleeve. Her fingers were cold through the fabric. She didn't squeeze, she just held on. "What is it?" she mouthed. Mark whispered, "Someone's up there." I almost said no. Not because I disagreed, but because saying yes felt like locking it in. We hadn't been quiet on the trail. We had talked, we laughed once or twice. We turned our phone lights on together when the trail disappeared into leaves and roots. If someone had been in that cabin for any amount of time, they would have heard us coming. Which made it worse. Because if they had heard us, why was the light still on? The red glow shifted again, higher this time. Not fixed, definitely handheld. A headlamp, probably with a red filter, maybe. I knew that in theory. I'd used red light before. I just hadn't expected to see it framed in a window that wasn't supposed to be occupied in the middle of the night. Sophie whispered, "It looks like a cigarette." "It's moving too much," I said, then immediately wished I hadn't spoken. Without discussing it, all 3 of us turned our phone lights off. The darkness closed in fast. You'd think it would help, but it didn't. It just made me feel more aware of everything I couldn't see. Roots, rocks. The fact that if someone inside turned on a real flashlight and swept it across the trees, we'd be standing there in the open, obvious. Mark leaned close. We should go. Sophie didn't answer. She was staring at the window, like if she looked away, the light would disappear, and then we'd have to guess what that meant. We're freezing, she whispered. We can't just... We can, Mark said. His voice was thin. We absolutely can. I didn't say what I was thinking, which was that the cabin had become our mental map. Without it, the trail felt abstract. GPS would probably work, but probably wasn't comforting right then. We were also all freezing. The red light paused, then slid again, slow and careful. I noticed the window glass then. It caught a faint reflection of the sky through branches, clean enough to reflect, not boarded, not broken. That didn't mean anything definite, but my brain filed it under maintained. I stepped sideways to get a better angle and snapped a stick under my boot. The red light froze. Not dimmed, not drifted, just stopped exactly where it was. My breath caught. Sophie's hand tightened. They heard that, I whispered. Mark said, we're too close. We were maybe 30 yards out, still in cover behind the trees, close enough to see the door shape. It was closed. No other lights were on, no glow downstairs, just that single light upstairs, red. Sophie pulled her phone out again, turned the brightness way down, and typed, "Do we call out?" Question mark. Mark shook his head hard, as if everyone could see him. He didn't want to be the one to decide, but he knew his answer. I typed back, maybe, which helped no one. We started moving again, but not straight toward the door. We drifted sideways along the tree line, putting trunks between us and the windows. At that time, it felt cautious. Later, it felt wrong. We weren't acting like people who expected a friendly answer. From inside the trees, the cabin looked different at every angle. The window vanished behind branches, then reappeared. The red light was gone now, but that didn't help. It just meant we didn't know where it was. We stopped and listened. I heard the trees shifting. A creak that could have been wood on wood or just branches rubbing. Somewhere deeper in the forest, something heavier cracked. A log rolling or falling maybe, or an animal moving fast through deadfall. It was far enough away to be unrelated, but it sent a jolt through me anyway. It reminded me of how loud things could be out here without meaning anything. Mark whispered, "Did you hear that?" "It's not from the cabin," Sophie whispered back. I didn't answer. I didn't trust my voice. We shifted positions without planning to. Mark drifted left, Sophie stepped back and right. I stayed where I was for a second, then moved forward a few steps to keep us within sight of each other. From the cabin's perspective, if someone was looking out, it would have looked like lights appearing and disappearing in different places, people repositioning, encircling without meaning to. That thought came to me too late. That's when I remembered the laser pointer. It was clipped to my pack strap because earlier on the trail I'd used it as a joke. We'd found a faded blaze and my phone light wouldn't hit it right, and the laser lit it up clean and sharp. "World's smallest survival tool," Mark had said. Unhooking it felt like crossing a line even before I turned it on. Mark whispered, "What are you doing?" "Just looking," I whispered back. I clicked it on under my hand first. A small, hard, red glow hit my palm. Even that made Sophie flinch. "Don't," she said quietly. "Please don't." "If I just steady it," I whispered. "If I don't wave it around." I braced my wrist against the trunk of a tree to keep my hand from shaking. I remember thinking about that specifically. Don't let it jitter. Like that was an important distinction. I aimed it at the upstairs window. The dot appeared on the glass, sharp and precise. It didn't fill the room. It didn't show much, but it made the window surface visible. For a second, I thought I could see shapes inside. Furniture, maybe, shadows. It was too hard to tell. The dot stayed still. Then deeper in the room, another red glow came on. It was lower than before, moving fast. I yanked the laser away. The dot skittered across the siding and vanished into the trees. Sophie whispered, "They're moving." Mark said, Okay, we're done." We started backing up, careful, trying not to turn fully around. Then the red glow inside cut out completely. Not slowly, just gone. That hit harder than seeing it. Because the timing mattered. It went dark right after the laser, right after the stick snap, right after our movement. I don't know if that meant anything, but my brain filled in intent immediately. "They turned it off," Sophie whispered. "I think so," I said, and added quieter, "I think they saw us." That was my interpretation. I knew that even then, but it felt solid in my chest. Mark stopped backing up. "We should say something," he said, like he'd decided on logic instead of fear. Before either of us could stop him, he cupped his hands and called out, "Hey, anyone in there?" The words felt huge in the cold. There was no answer. He tried again, louder. "Anyone in there? We're just hikers." He hesitated. I could hear him deciding what not to say. Not public, not ours, not empty. "We thought this place was..." He started, then stopped. Silence. Then a creak. Maybe a floorboard, maybe the porch, maybe nothing. Sophie grabbed his arm hard. "Stop," she hissed. My phone light came on accidentally when my thumb slipped. A bright beam cut through the trees and hit the cabin wall. A second later, Sophia's light came on, then Mark's. 3 white cones in different places, overlapping and separating as we moved. From inside, it would have looked coordinated, like we were checking angles. "Back," I whispered. "Back now, let's go." We retreated faster than before, not quiet running. Branches scraped our jackets. A root caught my toe and I stumbled. Sophie made a small, broken sound that wasn't a scream, but wasn't nothing. We regrouped at the trail without speaking, like we'd crossed an invisible boundary. We stood there with all our lights pointed down, not at the cabin. Nothing followed. No door opening, no flashlights sweeping the trees, no voice. Just absence again. We walked fast after that. No conversation, just logistics. "Watch your footing, stay together." At one point, Mark said, "I think that was someone's place." And Sophie said, "I know." And that was it. Once, far behind us, I thought I saw a red glimmer between the trees. Just a blink. It could have been anything. My laser pointer pressed in my pocket. A reflection. My eyes inventing patterns. I didn't see anything. When we finally got back to the car, the dome light came on and everything inside looked too bright and too close. Sophie laughed suddenly, sharp and breathless. Mark sat with both hands on the wheel, like he was already driving. I kept thinking about how the laser must have looked from inside. Steady, fixed, a single point aimed at a window. I kept thinking about Mark's voice calling out and getting nothing back. We never went back. We never clarified whose cabin it was. We didn't even say the name afterward. I still hike, but I try and stay away from structures or campsites in the woods, especially at night.
I told her it was a bad idea before we went inside. I didn't say it like a warning. I said it the way you say things you already know won't change anything. "We don't know whose place this is," I said. "If someone comes back and finds us..." I didn't finish. She was already limping, already shaking, already looking at the cabin like it was the only thing standing still. It was colder than it should have been. Not emergency cold, not yet, but the kind that seeps into joints and makes small injuries feel much bigger. Her ankle had been swelling since last afternoon. She kept saying it was fine. Every time she put weight on it, her breath shortened. The cabin was there in that too convenient way things sometimes are when you're lost, like it had been waiting. The door bothered me first. Not the lock, just the wood. Dry, intact, not collapsing. If it had looked abandoned, it would have been easier. Abandonment brings its own rules. Inside, the air was stale and cold, layered with dust and old wood. There was a faint metallic smell I couldn't place. We didn't turn on our white lights. That wasn't a decision so much as a shared instinct. I used my red headlamp instead, angled down, keeping the beam tight. "We'll just warm up," she said. "We won't touch anything." "We shouldn't be here," I said. She nodded, eyes closed, leaning against the wall longer than necessary. Upstairs felt safer. I don't know why. Smaller, maybe. Contained. If someone came in, they'd have to come up to us. We moved slowly, each step chosen because her ankle was getting worse and I was afraid she would fall. Our red light stayed low, just enough to see floorboards and edges. I liked that it didn't spill out the windows the same way. Red felt smaller and smarter, less announcing. We passed a small common area on the way up, a table, a corkboard on the wall. I swept the light across it without stopping. A map, some other forms, but one paper snagged my attention. In bold letters at the top, it said "Warning." The rest was folded or torn or just lost in shadow. I stopped anyway. "What?" she whispered. "Nothing," I said, too fast. I angled the light back just for a second, but my hand shook and the beam slid. I caught fragments. Handwritten maybe, or old print. Something about use or area on the board. I couldn't read it fully. That somehow felt worse than if it had been blank. Of course, my brain filled it in immediately. Warning, private property. Warning, active logging. Warning, do not enter. I told myself that if it were serious, it would be clearer, official, laminated, but the words stuck. A warning. I shut the light off and kept moving. The upstairs room had a low ceiling and a narrow window. There was a draft somewhere, but less than downstairs. I closed the door halfway. Fully closing it felt like admitting that we were hiding. She sat down hard on what might have been a bed frame and swore. When she pulled her boot off, the bruise was already blooming. "This was stupid," she said. I didn't say anything. I knelt and looked at her ankle, thinking about water, bandages, whether places like this stocked first aid kits. I was still half pretending there was a system. The first light outside barely registered. A white flicker through the window, gone before I could track it. "Did you see that?" she whispered. "Probably nothing," I said, because that's what you say. Then it happened again. Lower, moving sideways, not steady. "Hikers?" she whispered. "Maybe," I said. "Rangers?" I didn't believe that. Rangers announced themselves. The light stopped. Then another appeared farther to the right. Then another, briefly, to the left. I couldn't see people. It was too dark. Just the lights, appearing and disappearing, not staying in one place. They seemed close. Owners came to mind first. Someone coming back to their place and finding it occupied. But owners would come straight to the door. They wouldn't circle. I turned the red headlamp off without thinking. The room sank into near dark. I could still make out her shape, hunched, arms wrapped around herself. The forest made a sound then, a hard crack, a log shifting or falling maybe, or something breaking under weight. It was distant enough to be unrelated, but my body reacted before logic could. "They're moving," she whispered. "I don't think that was them," I said, but it didn't land. The lights outside shifted again. One flared bright and then vanished. Another appeared somewhere else. It felt deliberate, even though I know that might not mean anything. I crouched without deciding to. She followed, wincing, breath tight. "If they see us," she cut me off. "They won't. We've got the red light. We'll keep it off." I turned it back on, very low, pointed at the floor. Then the red dot appeared on the glass. Perfectly round, perfectly still. I didn't understand it at first. It didn't behave like a flashlight. It didn't wobble or wander. It just was. My spine went cold. "Don't move," I whispered. Her breath hitched. "That's not a phone or a flashlight." I couldn't answer. I was thinking about hunters, about people who didn't want to be found or seen, about the word warning and how I hadn't read the rest. The dot stayed long enough. The time did something strange. Then it slid away, fast, like whoever held it had shifted position. I pulled her lower, my hand clamped over hers to keep her from grabbing at the wall. Her ankle shifted and she bit down on a sound. Outside, the white lights multiplied, 3 maybe, moving independently, appearing where they hadn't been before. It felt like the room was shrinking, like the ceiling had dropped an inch. That's when the voice came. "Hey, anyone in there?" A man's voice, calm, measured. Relief flared, but died almost instantly. "Don't answer," she whispered. "Please don't." Then the voice came again, louder. "Anyone in there? We're just hikers." Just hikers? It sounded wrong in my head, like something you'd say if you wanted someone to respond. It felt like bait. "They do that," she whispered. "They say those things." "I know," I said, even though I didn't. The red dot appeared again, briefly, lower, not on the window this time, but near it. Still steady. Another crack echoed from the forest. Closer. Logs, something. Maybe it just sounded closer because everything else had gone quiet. The forest felt suddenly empty, like it was holding its breath. "They're waiting," she said. "They're waiting for us to come out." I didn't argue. I couldn't find a version of events that made more sense or felt safer, not in the moment. I unclipped the red headlamp and set it face down on the floor. Even turned off. Felt like it was a liability. "We shouldn't have come in here," I said. She nodded, jaw clenched, tears silent. The voices didn't come back. The lights moved for a while longer, stopping, starting, drifting apart. Then gradually they pulled away. One light bounced fast, like someone moving quickly. Another followed. Darkness settled in again. We didn't wait long. Staying felt worse than moving. Silence felt like preparation. We gathered our things with hands that didn't quite work right. I checked the window one more time. Nothing, no movement, no light. We left almost immediately. Not at dawn, not after rest, just gone. Every step down the stairs was careful. Every sound felt loud. Outside, the forest felt wrong, too quiet, like sound had been pulled out of it. I kept expecting the lights to snap on again from behind trees, people waiting for us to step out. Nothing happened. We didn't stop until we were back on the trail, a mile or so. Even then, I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see steady red lights pointed at me. Later, I tried to tell myself it was a laser pointer, hikers being cautious or dumb, or coincidence. But when I think back, the thing that sticks out isn't the light. It's not that word on the board, warning. It's how my brain filled in the rest, without ever needing to know more.
The first thing I saw was the note taped to the basement door that said, "Do not lock this." It was written in thick black marker, pressed hard enough to dent the wood. The tape was fresh, not curled, not dusty, recent. "Did you see this?" I said. "What?" Dennis called from the kitchen. "This," I said, touching the paper. He stepped over, still dripping from the rain, flashlight in his mouth. He read it, then pulled the light out and laughed once. "That's weird. Why would someone say that?" I asked. Maybe it sticks if it's locked," he said. "Old cabins do that." I tried the handle. It turned easily. The door opened an inch and then stopped against something soft, like it had swollen from moisture. "Don't force it," Dennis said. "We just got here." Wind hit the side of the cabin hard enough to make the walls creak. "Yeah," I said. "We just got here." We had rushed inside 10 minutes earlier, soaked through. The storm had come in faster than we expected, the road turning to mud halfway up. Branches were already down. We barely got the lockbox open. Inside, it was pitch black. No power. We dropped our bags on the counter, knocking over whatever the owner had left there. I remember a spare key sliding off and hitting the floor, but I didn't stop to pick it up. Fire first, Dennis said. Everything else later. We got it going after a few tries. The place warmed up fast. It was small but solid. The kind of cabin that feels safe once you're inside it. We opened beers, sat close to the fire. That note, I said. It's nothing, Dennis said. Owner probably has a reason. Old plumbing, sump pump access, something like that. Well, then why not explain it? He shrugged, because it's a rental, not a manual. The wind kept hitting the cabin in waves. The door to the basement sat in the corner, closed again. The note faced us like it was part of the room. Don't lock this, I read again, quieter. Later, when the storm dropped to a steady rain, Dennis went over there with his flashlight. I'm just checking it, he said. He opened the door fully this time. It scraped the floor. I stayed where I was. Well, I asked. It's not really a basement, he said. It's more like a crawl space. Anything weird? Just really low, he said, like 2/3 height. You'd have to crouch. I got up and stood behind him. The beam of flashlight cut down a short set of steps. The ground was covered in plastic sheeting, wrinkled and damp looking. There were support posts, a few boxes, pipes running under the ceiling. See, he said. The light moved further in. Does it go back more? I asked. Yeah, he said slowly, a little. Hard to tell where it ends. The beam stopped on a dark stretch past the supports. It looked like it angled away from the house slightly. Can you walk in there? I asked. There's water, he said. It's not deep, it's just in pools. I don't feel like soaking my shoes. Good, I said, then don't. He stepped back, closing the door. Are you locking it? I asked. He glanced at the note. No, he said. Apparently not. I woke up sometime after midnight. At first, I thought it was the rain again, but it wasn't steady. It came in irregular sounds. A step. Then nothing. What sounded like another step. A soft splash. I sat up. Dennis, I whispered. He didn't answer. Another sound. What felt like closer this time. Not above us or outside, but below us. Dennis, I said, louder. He woke up fast. What? Listen. We both went still. For a few seconds, nothing. Then it came again. A slow shift of weight. A wet step. Like someone moving carefully through shallow water. Dennis swung his legs off the bed. Stay here, he said. I'm not staying here, I said, already standing. We moved together into the main room. The fire had burned down to embers. The cabin felt different, smaller. The basement door was closed. The note was still there. Another sound came from below, a dull bump, like something brushing against wood. Dennis checked the front door. It was locked. It could be animals, he said, but his voice wasn't steady. In the basement? I said. Crawl space, he corrected, but he didn't sound convinced. He reached for the basement handle. Wait, I said, the note. He looked at me. You think that matters right now? He said. I didn't answer. He didn't open it. We stood there until the sounds stopped. In the morning, the cabin looked normal again. Too normal. Sunlight came through the windows. The storm had passed completely. No movement, no noise. Let's just clean up and go out for a bit, Dennis said. Clear our heads. I nodded. While we packed some stuff for a hike, I checked the counter. The spare key, I said. What about it? He asked. It was here last night. We knocked it off the counter. So it's probably on the floor, he said. We both looked. And looked more, but we couldn't find it. We checked under the table, under the bags, along the wall. Nothing. Are you sure you saw it? He asked. Yeah, I said. It hit the floor. I heard it. Maybe it slid somewhere, he said. It didn't slide out of the room. Neither of us said anything after that. We left the cabin for a few hours, walked the trail behind it, tried to act normal. On the back side of the cabin, near the foundation, I noticed a few things. Buckets, old ones, a couple of wooden crates. Those weren't there before, I said. Probably always there, Dennis said. They look used. He didn't answer. There were no visible openings into the crawl space from outside, no vents big enough for a person. We went back in. The second night, we didn't even try to relax. We kept the fire going, stayed up longer. Maybe we should just lock it, I said, nodding at the basement door. And ignore the only instruction the owner gave, Dennis said. Yes, I said. He shook his head. If something's wrong down there, locking it doesn't fix it. That doesn't make sense, I said. It does if it's already inside, he said. That shut me up. We went to bed late. The sounds started earlier this time. Not random. Movement. Clear movement. Step. Step. Splash. Pause. Then closer. I sat up immediately. It's back, I said. I hear it, Dennis said. The steps came toward the stairs and stopped. We both stared at the bedroom door. Then came a single sound right under us. A hand, maybe, or something, pressing against the underside of the floor. I feel like I felt it through the mattress. Dennis got up without saying anything, grabbed the flashlight, and walked out. Dennis, don't, I said. He didn't stop. I followed him. He stood at the basement door, light shaking slightly. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. He opened it, shined the light down. Nothing moved. The plastic sheeting was still, the supports cast long shadows. But the water had been disturbed. There were ripples, still fading. Hello, Dennis said, but there was no answer. He stepped down one stair. Dennis, I said. He froze. Look, I said. He angled the light down. There were muddy boot prints. They came from the darkness, across the plastic, up to the base of the stairs, then up 3 steps. Then they stopped, turned, and went back down. Dennis backed up slowly, closed the door. Neither of us spoke. We packed in under 10 minutes. We left before sunrise, didn't eat, didn't shower, just threw everything in the car and drove off. The road was still rough, but clear enough. Neither of us said anything until we hit pavement. What do you think that was? I asked. Dennis kept his eyes on the road. I don't know, he said. You don't think it was the owner? I asked. He would have said something, Dennis said. Would he? I said. He didn't answer. We never called him. He never reached out. The listing stayed up for a while, and then it was gone. I still think about the note. Not the warning. The wording. Do not lock this. Not for us, but for whatever needed it open.